Hey everybody, this is Time Rider. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's been watching the extra editions of The Bench over the past few weeks to help me celebrate 1 year of being a restoration guy. So, this is my final installment, and I'm going to cover some of where I've been and some of where I'm going. And in the background, I'm going to build, I guess, another example of this tow truck. This was the first thing that I ever did that I actually kept track of. I did one thing before this one, but I don't know, I might have a picture of it somewhere. But anyway, somebody suggested buying another one of these castings, which I did, and redoing it. I ostensibly using the skills that I've garnered over the past year. So stick around and we'll talk about where I've been and where I'm going. So if you followed me long enough, you'll remember that there was a time when I called my channel Chapter 4. And I got a lot of questions about that. And, you know, just by way of the short explanation, when I found out I was going to be retiring on the first of the year, I started my YouTube channel without any idea what it was going to be about. I just figured that it would be about the meanderings of a newly retired guy. And it kind of turned into the whole car thing a little bit later on. Like most people, I watched a video of another builder. It happened to be Marty, and I caught the bug. And I, had a banner week on the week of December 31st to January 6th because I did two models that did very well historically. The Unimog Mercedes, which I did during that week, and the Galaxy Police Cruiser, and both of those are among my most viewed videos. So about 2 weeks after that, I did my very first custom, which was this Land Rover, which went over really well. It's still one of my most viewed videos, and it really got me going into the custom world. Round about the time, I don't know, those of you who follow me might remember when I did the Dodge Dragster. That was when I made the change to the name Wee Little Cars. I did it principally because the channel had really chosen a direction, and I don't know that Chapter 4 really meant anything to the cause. This particular casting here, I did no research on it. If somebody knows what kind of truck it might represent, feel free to post below, because I don't know. I just know that I wanted to make the casting into something different than what it was, I guess. And it involved plating, which you see me doing here with zinc, and I'm going to work with some paint that I just started working with recently. So when I say that the Land Rover is my first custom, I guess that's not really true. But up until that point, custom work seemed to consist of a wheel swap and a paint job. And while I liked the wheel swaps and the paint jobs, I love this Firebird. I think this turned out great. It wasn't until I became Wee Little Cars and started going further afield, filing things, changing the structure of the original casting, that I think I really started to understand how much of a driving force custom work can be in this hobby. So anyway, let's get back to this tow truck. And after the plating, I was never trying to make this a mirror like I did with my Flash Cider. I just wanted it to be shinier than it was when I started. So, my regimen of polish and brush and wool and polish and plate, and that's an area that you're going to see me get into a lot more going forward. I want to take castings to places that they hadn't been before. I plated it a second time, and just trying to make it even more shiny than it was before. And followed the whole thing up with a polish. As I've said before, since I started doing this, that you go as far as you need to go. Somebody asked me, I did the last episode of The Bench, I talked a lot about electroplating, which is something that I'm new to, and I really need to give a shout out to George. Change my train of thought here for a second. I wanted to kind of replicate that original tow truck, so a blue cab was my choice. I contemplated doing a BP, and then I decided to just go with the blue. I was getting ready to paint the hook, and I found what Paul calls a woolly booger, and it actually turned out to be a piece of the plastic. Fortunately, I found it before I put too much paint on, so I still didn't feel bad about scraping on this and doing what I had to do to get rid of the little shred of plastic. And I decided that I wanted to paint this red, and the reason that I wanted to paint it red is because most of the Lesney Matchbox hooks are red, so this was kind of an homage for me. But anyway, back to George. He sent me a really nice video on electroplating, and I learned a great deal from it. But then I also kind of had an advantage of a good friend who worked as a machinist for like 3 decades, and he let me pick his brain. And what I was going to say is, somebody asked me the acidity of the vinegar that I used, and I said, I don't know. I went to the grocery store, and we're not electroplating to spec here. We don't need certain consistencies of zinc or whatever it is you're plating with. It doesn't have to be a certain thickness. The metal doesn't have to be a certain purity. We're electroplating little Matchbox cars, and the acidity of your vinegar isn't really going to play into it all that much. Just keep it simple, and if you want to do this, you'll do fine. So as I step through the looking glass and go back a year and see where I started. When I did this, I had enamel paint. That's what I had. And even then, though, if you look, I was doing what I could with my rudimentary skills to try to elevate this. Painting the black around the wheels and the marker lights and the little arrow stick on the front, the tires for the dolly. And then a year later, I just look at this casting and I see something different. And I do something different, and I try to take the casting someplace that it hasn't been before. There's an old saying about a man's shoes, and the same thing holds true to these castings. What have I learned in a year? Well, I learned that a wheel swap will do wonders for anything. They use pretty crappy wheels on these. I painted the hook red because I don't ever want to forget where I came from. I want to do those restorations because that's where I started. And no matter where my skills might take me in the future, that's where they started, and I don't ever want to forget that. The Spectre Flame is a foreshadowing of the future, that I'm going to try new things and I'm going to do different things. And I can tell you right now, you're probably going to see fewer videos from me because they're going to take longer. And whereas I always kind of did restorations and then customs, I think you'll find going forward that I'm probably going to do customs then restorations. I'm going to start dabbling in, the die-cast Hot Wheels world a little bit. Just to refine my skills. So anyway, that's where Wee Little Cars is going. Feel free to comment below. And now let's give away a Tootsie toy. So just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, I've been giving away a casting a week for the last month. And this is going to be my final giveaway. Last week I took this Tootsie toy and did things to it that nobody's probably ever done to a Tootsie toy before. And painted it with Spectra Flame red paint. And now we're going to give it away. Hey, I know this place. By the way, if you don't look at YouTube in dark mode ever, I think you're missing out. I think my channel looks way better in dark mode. Anyway, let's paste a URL in here. And hey, William Robinson. It's your Tootsie, man. Get a hold of me at timerider2000@gmail.com and we'll figure it out. I built over 100 toy cars this past year, and of them, my favorite was the Isogrifo. This is Time Rider, and I'll leave the light on for you.